Good morning. I hope you survived the weekend. I had a great time at Victory Baptist Church yesterday morning. Went to Rosie Joe's and ate. Came back and watched the rest of the Chiefs and Broncos game and nearly had a heart attack like the rest of the people who watched it. I believe that their win was a miracle of the first degree. Denver did everything right to beat them, and Mahomes still won. He won. He won on the blocked field goal, but that's a win. That makes them 9-0. A lot of people around here are happy about that, of course. They had a great time last night at the Ozark Full Gospel Church. Played in the band and sung with Gayla and Josh. You know, it may be a kind of worldly thing, but I love playing with them because they play really well. And as a musician, I like that. I'm just as susceptible to druthers and likes as anybody else. And I like playing with that band. And of course, they have a great Bible teacher in Brother James Akins. And Dr. Adrian was there last night too. He didn't have anywhere else he had to be. And so he was there with us, and we worshiped Christ in spirit and in truth. We had a great time. Now, I will say that in way of promotion that Dr. Adrian and I will be at the Mount Gibson Baptist Church in Waynesville. If you don't know where it is, it's right there on the road by the Veterans Cemetery there on the edge of Fort Leonard Wood. And so come see us. We'll be there Friday night, Saturday night, and Sunday morning. And so we would love to have you with us and be able to visit a little bit. Now, we will, in Zechariah, now we're going up to Clinton, or I don't know where we're going today. I think we're going to Harrisonville, Ron and I. We're going to meet, you've heard me speak of them, Bobby D and Tyrone. They're Ron's cousins. They all came from a Mennonite family that became Baptist. Their fathers were brothers, and two brothers left the Mennonite church and became Baptist pastors. And then each of them had two sons who became Baptist pastors, and all four of those sons went to BBC. Tyrone and Ken, the elders, they were lieutenants and workers with Dr. Jerry Falwell back during the moral majority days. So they go way back. And so a couple of times a year, Ron goes to get with his cousins and just have a meal and visit and gossip. And sometimes I go along with him because Tyrone says, "Bring Harris with you. We want to see Harris." Of course, I got to know them over the years from traveling with Ron. So wish us a safe passage today. Also, Gayla, she's having eye surgery today. And more than that, on top of that, Rick Osborne is having some eye surgery today. Both of them at the surgery center in Springfield at Mercy. So if they can still see after their surgery, maybe they'll see each other. But I imagine they'll be kind of packed up and everything. You don't show up for eye surgery without a driver, right? So anyway, we're in Zechariah chapter 9, and beginning in verse 1. We'll just go through what we did yesterday. The burden of the word of the Lord in the land of Hadrach and Damascus shall be the rest thereof. When the eyes of man, as of all the tribes of Israel, shall be toward the Lord. Now that will be in the millennium we established. And Hamath also shall border nearby. Tyrus and Zidon, though it be very wise, And Tyrus did build herself a stronghold, and heaped up silver as the dust, and fine gold as the mire in the streets. Behold, the Lord will cast her out, and he will smite her power in the sea, and she shall be devoured with fire. And that's exactly what happened 200 years after Zechariah wrote this. The Persian Empire fell to Alexander. Alexander took Tyre. And I described in detail yesterday how he destroyed it by building a causeway out to it, by capturing a navy and fighting against it, and by allying with the king of Cyprus and sent a Cypriot navy to seal the deal. And so 200 years before it happened, Zechariah was writing about the great victory that Alexander the Great would have over Tyre. Excuse me. Now we're going to continue. This is a prophetic chapter. We're going to continue with some more of that today. Good morning, Charlie. Good morning, Gayla. Look for Rick. He'll be up there sometime this morning. When I get through talking to you, I'm going to text Rick so that he and Linda can be aware that you may be there. You may be in separate rooms together. You don't know. Now, I've been to that surgery center several times myself, and they wrap you up and they get you all ready to go. And then sometimes you lay on a bed for, 2 hours and 32 minutes, waiting for them to roll you somewhere else. So you never know what's actually going to happen until they tell you to count back from 100. and then the next thing you know, you're coughing and choking, trying to breathe as you come back to in the recovery room. Now, verse 5 of chapter 9 in Zechariah. Now we're going to talk. We've talked about Tyre and Sidon. And we talked about Syria. Now we're going to talk about Ashkelon. We're going to talk again about cities in Philistia, the Philistines. And as we read these, we will come to understand that these are future predictions. And I will explain as we go along. This is a prophecy, just like Zechariah was writing a prophecy about the fall of Tyre 200 years before it fell. Just like he did that, he's writing a future prophecy here for very much the same period. Verse 5, Ashkelon shall see it and fear. So see what? She'll see Alexander destroy Tyre. Gaza also shall see it and be very sorrowful. Ekron, for her expectation, shall be ashamed, and the king shall perish from Gaza, and Ashkelon shall not be inhabited. Okay, first thing you notice that all of these cities are in ancient Philistia. They're the cities of the Philistines. They're among the 5 great cities of the 5 great kings of the Philistines that we begin to know intimately as they war against Israel in the Judges, and of course through the reigns of Saul and David, until David all but extinguishes them for several generations. They're in ancient Philistia. Now, of these cities, Ekron, Ashkelon, Ekron, and Ashdod, they're in modern southwestern Israel now. Gaza is the only one that's still a part of Philistia. Gaza Strip, where Hamas is, that is ancient Philistia, or part of it. It's all that's left of ancient Philistia. Hamas are the Philistines. I keep telling you this over and over. Their name means violence. in some ways, they are the blood descendants of the Philistines, but more importantly, they are the spiritual descendants of the Philistines. Because that old dragon, Satan the devil, is their God, and he is the one who leads them against Israel. Remember, we talked very much the other day about how the Philistines attacked Israel in modern times, which means it was Hamas attacking Israel in modern times for the old hatred. Remember, we read about that in Zephaniah chapter 2. We read about that in Ezekiel 25. Those were prophecies that were fulfilled on October 7th, 2023. The Bible is being fulfilled in front of your eyes right now. How can you have any doubt at all about what's going on? How can you not live a godly life? How can you not worship the King? How can you not surrender to the Lord? You know, if you went to a fortune teller at a carnival and she's like dressed up in a gypsy outfit with the big hoop earrings and a bandana on her head, you know, and she's going, you know, Alakazam, Kalamazoo, Chili Beanie. Ooh, I must wear 7.5. And she says, you're going to meet a tall, dark stranger. And somebody like me doesn't show up, but somebody who really is a tall, dark stranger. Well, you believe that. You may not want to believe that somebody like me will show up, but you'll believe it about a tall, dark stranger. People believe all kinds of weird stuff. You know, you believe that witches can manipulate nature. And so you watch these shows about how they call the corners and burn candles and all that kind of thing. Good morning, Kevin. Some of that can be fulfilled by Satan the devil himself, but it's all just tricks. They don't have any real magical power. They cannot alter reality. They can alter your perception of reality. The same with the fortune teller. You know, Saul went to a fortune teller when God wouldn't answer him, and she told him the truth because God made her. She brought up Samuel from the grave, and Samuel says, hey, you're going to be in the grave with me tomorrow and your sons. We believe the polls. Kamala was going to win. There was no way Trump could win. You see, that's what the people in the media believe, so that's what they told you. Don't ever believe them again. They're always wrong. Look at the situations in the world and decide for yourself. Don't listen to right-wing propaganda either. They have an axe to grind. And they all serve corporations. Corporations pay all their bills. Just look at the events that happen and trust Christ, and he will tell you the right thing to do. He always will. So we believe all kinds of nonsense in our modern life. We believe that bacon and eggs will kill you. Well, you know, it's like the old story, you know, Grandpa, you know, he ate bacon and eggs every day of his life, and they finally killed him when he was 98. Or Uncle Louis, he had a shot of whiskey every night after supper, and it finally killed him when he was 103. If this is Satan's world, and Satan is the prince of the power of the air, then what makes you think that anything you hear would be true? Now, you got to see it with your own eyes. That's why I encourage you to dig deep on the internet and look at footage being shot around the world. Look at the real war in Ukraine. Look at the real war in Gaza, in Lebanon. Look at the real conflicts. Look at some of these real civil wars in Africa, where it's not unusual to see Chinese equipment and Chinese troops They're not dressed in Chinese uniforms, but they're CCP all the way, baby. You know, look for yourself, decide for yourself. But we want to believe certain things. But the mind that is opposed to God and is concentrated on self, and if you're concentrated on yourself, you're concentrating on the devil. Because the devil wants you to think about yourself, so you won't think about Christ. Thinking about Christ is a surrender, an abandoning of self. Because my concern is Christ in me, the hope of glory. My concern is not Jimmy Harris, who is nailed to the cross and is dead as a raccoon smashed flat in the middle of the road. The old Jimmy Harris does not exist, but his dead, stinking body is still inside me, and he starts to smell every now and then. Satan doesn't want you to think about anything to do with Christ. Good morning, Benny. So you see, we'll believe a fortune teller, we'll believe a prognosticator on the news, on TV, but we won't believe what the Bible said. And Zephaniah chapter 2 and Ezekiel chapter 25 were fulfilled on October 7th, 2023. So when you see these things being fulfilled around you, being played out exactly as they were written in the Bible, 2,000 years ago, 2,500 years ago, sometimes 3,000 years ago, when I was 3,500 years ago, then you have to understand that that you're being willful. You just care about, you don't want to hear the truth. Another thing that we see that I've been preaching ever since we were in Jeremiah is the coming war of Gog and Magog. Could start at any time. It's either going to, it comes in two phases. Once at the beginning of the tribulation, once at the end. There are two Gog and Magog wars. The main one in Ezekiel 38 and 39. I don't know when it's going to happen. It could happen right before the tribulation. It could happen right before the rapture. It could happen during the rapture. It could happen right after the rapture. We don't know, but I do know this. All you have to do is pick up a newspaper. Well, nobody reads newspapers anymore, but look at your news feed on your laptop or watch TV for a few minutes. The players described in Ezekiel 38 and 39 are on the field right now. And that war is mainly Turkey, Syria, Iran, and Russia against Israel. That is going on right now. The war hasn't happened yet. I mean, this is still shots exchanged between Iran and Israel. There ain't no war yet. You know, they think there's a war, but there ain't no war yet. There's no war like they'll see if they actually attack Israel and have some girth behind it. Now, these are just tit-for-tat shots they're taking right now. I'm not making light of the dead, the 40,000 or whatever it is dead Hamas inhabitants of Gaza, those Arabs who live there. I'm not making light of that. They're all dead. Or the hundreds approaching thousands of dead in Lebanon, and all those dead terrorists and politicians that got blowed up when they answered the wrong phone call. Boy, they woke up in hell and there were not 72 virgins to meet them. I heard a guy say, well, it's not 72 virgins that will meet them in paradise, but just one 72-year-old virgin. Do the math. In a way, I can kind of get along with that because I'm almost 72 also. It's not that far away. So I can make fun of myself with that. Believe what the Bible says. You see, one of the reasons I believe in the Bible is because things that it prophesied to happen have already happened. And the things that haven't happened yet, I see that they are getting ready to happen. You need to see it too. The Holy Ghost is your teacher. The Bible is your text. Just read it. Let him talk to you. You will understand what's going to happen next. And you don't have to be a prophet. The prophet has already spoken. You don't have to be a preacher. You don't have to be a teacher. You don't have to be Dr. So-and-so. You don't have to be the Reverend Mr. Black. You don't have to be any of those people. All you have to do is be saved. Being saved is your only qualification for understanding the Bible. If you use this as your only text and the Holy Ghost as your only teacher. So, he's making predictions, Zechariah is, about cities in Philistia. Good morning, Trent. The only city that he says here that's still in the former land of the Philistines is Gaza. The rest of them are part of Israel. But he's writing about the time that Alexander would raid them. They were all Philistine cities then. So they're shook up because they saw what Alexander did to Tyre. And then he came down. And for the first time, the Philistines were put into complete submission. And I think that it's because of the way they treated Israel for all those years. They were judged according. Their own sin had made a trap for them. It was for the old hatred, as we talked about the other day. The blood feud. It's where people have been fighting so long they can't even remember why. But we know why, because the Bible tells us. Now, another prophecy that was fulfilled here. It says in verse 6, well, let's just read this. We've lost track because I was telling you why you should believe the prophecies of the Bible when you'll believe crazy things. I mean, for a while, the biggest show on TV, was The Walking Dead, and everybody was afraid of a zombie apocalypse. And there ain't no such thing. So there you go. If people would rather believe in something that could never happen than in something that is definitely going to happen. Verse 5 of Zechariah chapter 9, Ashkelon shall see it and fear. Gaza also shall see it and be very sorrowful. And Ekron, her expectation, shall be ashamed. And the king shall perish from Gaza. And Ashkelon shall not be inhabited. Well, it's inhabited now, so this is a prophecy that happened then. It was fulfilled when Alexander got done. You got to look at a map. Tyre and Sidon is the southern part of modern Lebanon. There was a little space where Israel had access to the coast, and then at what is modern day Caesarea Philippi. Then they come down from there, and then there's another block of land there, and that was Philistia, the land of the Philistines. It is Gaza, the Gaza Strip. Now, the Gaza Strip is about a quarter of the width that it was during the days of the Philistines, and about a third of the height that it was on the map along the coast, because they were part of the Phoenician society, the sea people. Dagon, their god, was this great weird fish god. He was kind of like a combination of Zeus and Moby Dick. It was this weird giant fish that could do anything. That was their god, because they were people of the sea. So it happened that Alexander came down after he reduced Tyre. He came down and he took the land of the Philistines, and he did destroy their cities, and he did kill their kings, and he stole their gold, and he raped their women, and he stole their children. That's what you did back then. That's how the army got paid. You killed all the men and took all their money, and then took their women and children captive. And so you became rich until somebody took it away from you. That was just how things were done. That was commerce back in the day. And verse 6, this is really another fulfilled prophecy. And a bastard shall dwell in Ashdod. And then God says, I will cut off the pride of the Philistines. Well, they did. They had no pride left because they were conquered by Alexander the Great. Their kings, their king in Gaza was killed. The kings or the princes, the ones who ruled the different cities, they were destroyed. The cities were destroyed. The soldiers were killed. The women were taken captive. The children were taken captive. All of their gold and their silver and their treasures in the fields, their crops, their vineyards, everything. Their fleet, their fishing, their great fleet. They were great sea people like the Phoenicians. They were linguistically and blood kin to the Phoenicians of Tyre and Sidon and Carthage and that great Mediterranean coastal society. And he cut off the pride of the Philistines. But this verse here, this verse 6, a bastard shall live in Ashdod, shall dwell in Ashdod. Now, Ashdod now, of course, is in southwestern Israel. But then it historically was the city of the Philistines. There are occasions where the men of Israel were fighting with the men from Ashdod. And so we know a lot about Ashdod from the Old Testament and from the Chronicles of the Kings and from the books of 1st and 2nd Samuel. We know about Ashdod. It was a city of the Philistines. But then it says a bastard. These cities were destroyed when Alexander came and it said, a bastard shall dwell in Ashdod. And I've read commentaries by learned men who I think have missed the whole point. They said that a bastard shall dwell in Ashdod. Ashdod said that they will become a mixed race. Well, it takes a long time to become a mixed race. I believe that, it would take several generations. And I think that that's one of the reasons why the white culture in the South in the olden days, they were so into genealogy because, as we all know, Massa spread his seed far and wide. And you never know when you're going to find a black ancestor. If you're from the South, chances are you have a black ancestor. I think it's hilarious that these people who are into genealogies are doing everything they can to prove that there wasn't anybody black in their family tree. It's just madness. The reverse of that is everybody for every state around Oklahoma, they're all trying to find out if they're an Indian so that they can get some tribal money. They're trying to prove that they're a Cherokee or something. I know a lot of people who are always trying to get documents to prove that they're Cherokee so that they can get some kind of stipend from the tribe. It's madness. We've turned into a bunch of crazy people. We're a nation of grifters. Which brings me to this. I don't sell anything. If you come to one of my meetings, I don't have anything to sell. When I write stuff, I just give it away. I wound up giving away thousands of copies of my book on Jude. When I run out because I don't have money to buy more. And then when I get money to buy more, I might. I'm working on a book right now about the churches in Asia Minor that Jesus wrote to through the pen of John the Apostle. People always trying to sell something. I don't have anything to sell. All I have is the truth, and I'll give it to you. We'll go back to verse 6. The bastard shall dwell in Ashdod. I believe that this is a fulfillment of Zechariah's prophecy. Zechariah wrote probably 500, 520, somewhere in there, BC. Alexander was in 330, 320 BC, 200 years later. And he did pitch his tent in Ashdod. And it was from that central point that they did all the wiping up to destroy the Philistines. I will cut off the pride of the Philistines. Remember the goal: kill all the men, rape all the women, drink all the wine, take all the women and children captive, and steal whatever they got there. That's how the kings paid their army. I hate to put such a blunt face on it, but that's what they did. That was the economy of the day. A bastard shall dwell in Ashdod. So it's not a mixed race idea that was prominent in Old Testament teaching. Almost every book I ever read about it said that it had to do with them becoming a mixed race, just like in Jesus' time, the people of Judea hated the Samaritans, because they were mixed blood. They were part Jewish, and they were part Assyrian and part everything else from the captivities. They didn't have that pure bloodline. But that's not what we're talking about here. You know who the bastard was? Says a bastard shall dwell in Ashdod. Who is the bastard? It was Alexander. Alexander was a bastard. No, he was the son of Philip of Macedon. No, he wasn't. That's why Philip treated Alexander so bad, and that's why he treated Alexander's mother, Olympia, so bad. Why he hated her, because he knew that Alexander was not his son. And then this is where we get the story, you see. Olympia tells King Philip, Alexander's legal father, he tells King Philip, look, I was not unfaithful to you, my king. I would lied not with another man. But Zeus came to me in the person of Amun. Who was Amun? He was the equivalent of Zeus among the desert peoples, the nomads of the day, and what is now Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Ammon, not ancient Ammon, Iraq, not necessarily Babylonian, but mostly in that southwestern part of Iran that bleeds over into Iraq and Saudi Arabia, where the modern, where ancient Elam was. And Amun was their version of Zeus. He's also referred to in Roman mythology as Jupiter Ammon. And so what she says, Zeus Ammon, Zeus, the great Greek god, the head of all the gods, he came to her in the person of this Asian god, Amun. And because Philip had wanted of long to conquer Persia, and she thought that if she used a god of Asia, that he would believe her and see this as a prophecy that the gods are giving him a son who will lead this expedition into Asia, which he did. And without the encouragement and teaching of his mother, Alexander probably never would have invaded, may never have invaded mainland Asia. Olympia, his mother, told King Philip of Macedon, yes, Zeus Amun appeared to me, and he said, thou shalt be with child. How does that sound? Does that sound familiar to you? See, the devil is imitating the birth of Christ and the Annunciation to Mary. Only she's not a virgin, she's the king's wife. But, it's the devil's story, so he can tell it however he wants to. He tells it over and over. This is yet another version of the Semiramis, Tammuz, Isis, Horus, Mary, baby Jesus. It's another telling of that myth. Do I believe in the virgin birth? Yes. Do I believe that Jesus is the Son of God? Yes. But there is no worship of Mary. She's just a woman. She had to get saved like you and I did, exactly the same way. And she got to heaven by her Son, Jesus Christ, and not of any good that she had done. We should honor her, but we should never worship her. And so our Catholic friends are dead wrong there. Worshiping Mary will take you to hell. If you're doing it, you need to stop. Jesus Christ said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man cometh unto the Father but by me. Back to King Philip of Macedon in Olympia, she said, Zeus came to me in the person of Amun and left me with child. My child in my belly is the son of the gods. And of course, Philip didn't believe that nonsense, and rather than avoid public embarrassment, and what does that sound like? Joseph's not willing to make her a public example. So Satan is always trying to copy the virgin birth. He's always trying to copy the birth of Jesus Christ and try to turn it off. He's done it many times in history. That is when we have the mother-child cult, which is the ancient Babylonian religion, Mystery Babylon. That's why it's so prominent still today and will be even more prominent during the last days. So she had a child, Olympia did, and that child was Alexander. And Philip held him up as if he was his own child and blessed him, and they made the sacrifices at the temple like they're supposed to. Who else went to the temple? They took Jesus to the temple. You see, Satan is copying the greatest story ever told by telling the greatest lie ever heard. And he's done it for centuries. So, the bastard shall dwell in Ashdod. The timing of this, the fall of Tyre first, then the conquering of the Philistines second, and then cutting off the pride of the Philistines, and then the bastard that dwells in Ashdod. That's where he pitched his tent, that's where he ruled, and that's where he planned his invasion of Egypt, where he would go, of course, and build what became the greatest port and the greatest city on the Mediterranean, which was Alexandria, named for himself. So the bastard shall dwell in Ashdod. That bastard was Alexander the Great. It was a fulfillment of Zechariah's prophecy about 200 years before Alexander set foot on the continent of Asia. Now, it's all there in black and white. The history is there to go along with the verses. And the prophecy was written 200 years beforehand. How can you not believe that? But you believe in vampires. You believe in life on other planets. But you believe in life on other planets, but when you look in a telescope as far as the eye can see, and when you look at the pictures sent back from all our deep space probes, all you see out there is dirt and rocks. That's all there is, except for right here on this little planet. That's the onlyest place that there's life in the universe. Mortal life, anyway. And all the aliens and everything else we see that we think are ghosts and that we think are aliens, that we think are people from other planet, they're just fallen angels trying to fool you, because that's part of the great deception. When the rapture comes, one of the lies that Satan will tell through the beast, through the false prophet, good morning, John, is that we've all been taken away by aliens. All the Christians were taken by aliens. They were removed so the rest of humanity could progress and find their full human potential. Well, they're right about one thing. Christians are in the way, but they're not in the way of progress. They're in the way of Satan having his way. The only thing stopping Satan from taking over the world right now is the Church of Jesus Christ. And once we're removed, he will take over this world. And he will rule for 7.5 years, for 7 years. And the worst part of it will be the last 3.5 years. This is called the Great Tribulation. Satan's always wanting to run things, and here any minute, God is going to say, okay, Buster, you always wanted to be in charge. You give it your best shot. And what he does is he almost destroys the entire world before God shuts him down and throws him in a bottomless pit. Yeah. But maybe that's a little too real for us to believe. Maybe we'd rather believe in vampires. Now, I don't believe in vampires, but when I watch a vampire movie, I usually sleep with my Bible laying on my chest so that they can't get me. And I'm not superstitious, and I'm not afraid of the dark, and I know there's nothing under the bed. But if I keep my foot under the cover, nothing can get me. You see how fragile humanity is. The only thing I actually believe in is Christ and his word. He is the living word. This is the written word. But like any other human, I can let all these weird things seep into my brain and affect me psychologically and emotionally. The Bible says don't do that. And when I read prophecy like this, it's completely fulfilled. I just have to thank God. That's the main thing. The bastard in Ashdod is Alexander camping, pitching his tent after he conquered Tyre and Sidon and Philistia and plans his invasion of Egypt. Now, in verse 7, we'll just finish this up, and God says, I will take away his blood out of his mouth and his abomination from between his teeth. But he that remaineth, even he, shall be for our God, and he shall be as a governor in Judah, and Ekron as a Jebusite. A Jebusite would be an ancient inhabitant of Jerusalem. The Jebusites were from whom David took Jerusalem. What he's saying here is he says, one day I'm going to pitch there, not Alexander. One day I'm going to pitch there, and I'm going to take away all the abominations. I'm going to take away the blood. I'm going to take away all the abominations that you're eating, the unkosher food. And if there's anybody left, he's going to be for me. And this is talking about in the millennium, when even the Philistines that remain will be subservient to God. Remember, it says that their eyes shall be toward God. When the eyes of man, as the tribes of Israel, shall be toward the Lord. That's in verse 1 of this chapter. That sets the theme like a topic sentence. And verse 8, and I, God, will encamp about mine house because of the army, because of him that passeth by, and because of him that returneth. And no oppressor shall pass through them any more. These people in Tyre and Sidon, the people in Philistia, I'm going to have a governor there. It says he's going to be like a governor in Judah in verse 7. I'm going to have my man there. And if anybody gets out of line, King Jesus is going to know about it, and we're going to put paid to it. This is a picture of the millennium. And it says, no oppressor shall pass through them any more. And now have I seen with mine eyes. And that is Zechariah saying, I see what you're doing, Lord. I see the vision that you've shown me. You've given me a vision about Tyre and Sidon and Philistia and how it's going to be for them in the near future and how it's going to be for them in the millennial kingdom. And I'm always amazed by these things. We will continue verse 9 tomorrow. Chapter 9, we will continue tomorrow. God bless you. Good morning, John.